the economy is crippled because the money is defective. And when Bitcoin is 10x bigger or 100x bigger than it is now, 80% of the economy will be crippled with 80% defective money. So we're going to have a crippled worldwide economy for a long time.
With Bitcoin sitting just below 43,500, many investors are anticipating a further spike in price heading into the last few weeks of the year. Many have speculated why we've seen this $3,000 rise just in the past week, with institutional capital at the forefront of the discussion. Today we hear from Michael Saylor as he discusses the rise in value for Bitcoin and why this is causing the biggest fiat collapse in history. Saylor says that central banks and governments are hiding the collapse of these currencies as they continue to print the already inflated money. Saylor says after he first became interested in Bitcoin in the crypto market back in March of 2020 and saw a digital reconstruction of assets, power, and currency. Saylor then gathered that the standard treasury plan had been damaged. He saw there's now no reason to make money, as it's been considered meritless by public investors, and the economy has lost 40% of its purchasing power in the last 2 years. Even though the dollar is the most powerful medium exchange in the world, fiat currencies are the weakest store of value. Most people don't want to hold a local currency, but in the long term, invest in Bitcoin because it's the most reliable property on the market. Let's listen to Michael Saylor as he gives his take on Bitcoin, the collapse of fiat currency, and where the market is headed in 2024. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoy the content we do here on this channel. Let's get right into the video.
In the extreme cases, you can be literally, crazy, nuts, and suspend the laws of everything for anywhere from a number of months to a number of years. But eventually, the economy collapses, the society collapses, people lose faith in you. You can certainly corrupt a monetary system with political meddling, over some number of years. I guess when you get a strong enough leader, they normally crash their money supply in about 20 years. And if you're lucky, if you're the world reserve currency or the world leader, maybe you'll last 100, 200 years before you crash the system. Before 2020, the US was expanding the money supply by 7%. So we had 7% a year leakage annually. So we're basically leaking half the energy out of the system every 10 years on the world reserve currency since 1971. Certainly, and I think probably since 1914 or so. So that's about a 7% leakage per year, but it was about a 14% leakage per year in the developing world. So, the money, energy has a half-life, or money has a half-life of 10 years in strong currencies, and has a half-life of 5 years in the weak currencies. And that was the status quo till 2020. And the way that kind of reflects itself is in weak nations, the currency collapses about every 20, 25 years. And we saw currency collapses, financial collapses in Russia. There was one in 96. We saw currency collapses in Argentina about every 20, 25 years. So weak countries in Africa, weak countries in South America, weak countries in Asia, they keep losing, their currency system collapses every 20 to 30 years. And then the strong currency, it's going to last about 100 years or 50 years or so, 50 to 100 years. That all got accelerated in March of 2020 when I think the rate of monetary inflation in the US dollar, it doubled to triple. It sort of went somewhere in the range of 20% a year. 15 to 20% a year. I think we expanded the money supply 20% each of the next 2 years. And so a 40% debasement of the currency in the world reserve currency over 24 months. But if we look at the other currencies and what's going on with them, I think it's kind of even more disturbing. I mean, if you look at currencies against the dollar in the last 12 months, the Japanese yen is down 23%, the Polish zloty is down almost 19%, South African rand is down 17%, Great British pound is down 16%. Yuan's down 15, the euro's down 15, and even the Chinese currency, which they control, is down about 8% year over year. So what we see is that the strongest currency, the dollar, is losing something at this point like 15% or more of its purchasing power a year. Like, how do I know that? Well, the CPI and the PPI in dollars are clocking about 8.5% right now to 9%, but CPI and PPI are manipulated, distorted metrics of true monetary inflation, because we cherry pick a subset of products and services, and we choose to measure them in a managed fashion. So a reasonable conclusion is they certainly understate the extent of monetary inflation. They probably understate it by half.
Saylor says that even though the worst is over with, the industry hasn't yet been resolved, because we have gone through an essential deleveraging. People will be more cautious in their purchasing of assets. Saylor says that many people need to be educated on necessities such as basic risk management, counterparty risk, and the difference between a security and a commodity.
The U.S. economy and the U.S. currency, which is the strongest, it's the world reserve currency. You've got Europe and Poland and our allies and Korea and Japan, and they're weaker. They're kind of pegged to us, but they're losing 10 to 20% of their value against our currency. And you've got the third tier developing world currencies like the peso and the Turkish lira. And of course, they're collapsing at 50% a year or more. And what you see is, of course, chaos in Lebanon. You see chaos in Sri Lanka, where the government will literally collapse. I think that now, 2022, right, we're just going through this massive transition where I think politicians realize that inflating the money supply by 20% a year in the Western world was not sustainable. I think they figured that out, and that's why interest rates are being taken up and we're squeezing back, and that's why you have all these risk assets trading off and the like. But what's the conclusion? The conclusion is we've agreed that we're not going to inflate the money supply by 21%, but we're probably going to inflate it by 14% a year. There's no way we're going back to 7% a year inflation. So I think we probably land where we thought we would land, somewhere in the range of double for the next 4 years or something like that, maybe 14% in the US, but other currencies are worse, right? In Japan, they're trying to peg the 10 years to 25 basis points, and that's why their currency is collapsing against the dollar. The story is not, finished here. We'll see how it turns out. But bottom line is everybody for the last 30 years knew that the US dollar was not a store of value. The economy is crippled because the money is defective. And when Bitcoin is 10x bigger or 100x bigger than it is now, 80% of the economy will be crippled with 80% defective money. So we're going to have a crippled worldwide economy for a long time. And if you're wondering, where the signs of that are, well, just look at across the entire world. Look at what's going on in Sri Lanka. Look at the problem in China when they blow up the 30 apartment buildings that are empty. These are all just signs of corrupt, defective energy systems that just don't work.
Saylor says we are seeing the intense demand for two things: online property and currency. The world wants high-speed currency as a method of exchange to be able to use a computer to trade with companies across divides. People also want property, but it's unrealistic to just buy a bar of gold or purchase security. Saylor recommends buying rare, profitable assets that have no danger of counterparty risk. He's observed that the entire world would like a stable digital currency, and countries need a digital coin because their currencies are constantly collapsing. There is a general consensus that Bitcoin is a very important asset that would stand beside commodities like oil, land, and gold. Saylor believes that Bitcoin as an asset will grow because it's validated it and supports an asset class. He feels that there will always be fiat currencies and capable nation-states, but most countries' currencies will eventually collapse. What do you guys think of Michael Saylor's opinion on the deterioration of fiat currency and his prediction for Bitcoin in the last part of 2023? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more content just like this. We'll see you in the next video.